Hi, everyone, and welcome to Ad Age Remotely. I'm Judy Pollack, Executive Editor of Ad Age. Thank you for joining us today, and thanks to our sponsor, Verizon Media, for making this possible. Today, we are joined by someone, and I've always wanted to say this, needs no introduction. Donny Deutsch has long been a fixture on the advertising and media scene for decades. He's the former CEO and chairman of the ad agency Deutsch, which he sold to IPG a little more than 20 years ago. From there, he transitioned to media pundit and TV celebrity, hosting shows like MSNBC's Saturday Night Politics and CNBC's The Big Idea with Donny Deutsch. And he's often seen on Morning Joe. He's done talk shows, a comedy show, written 2 business books, and now has turned his attention to podcasting. He's just launched the On Brand with Donny Deutsch podcast, which digs deep into some of the brands and the people who are changing the world in the fields of business, entertainment, media, and more. It also delves into the convergence of politics, current events, and pop culture, which is a lot of what we cover at Ad Age, and so I'm so happy to welcome him here today. But before we get started, I'd like to mention to the audience that if you're watching on our social channels, please like, subscribe, and share. And feel free to leave questions, and we will try to get to them during the conversation. Hi, Donny, and thanks for coming. I feel like you ought to be interviewing me, actually.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can't.
Okay, let's work. Oh, Donny, we can't hear him right now, but give him a second. It's one of the few times that he's very quiet. You might want to try taking the earpods out. Could that work?
How's that?
There you are.
I still can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me though.
Oh, wait, no.
No?
London, go find.
Okay, I'm getting
Hold on, guys. I'm
instructions.
sorry. I'm going to try and do this.
Yeah.
Guys, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I can't hear you. Just the audience. We tested this ahead of time. So Judy was all over this. Something obviously screwed up on my end, but we're going to fix it. Give us 30 seconds. I can open with a joke. Guy walks into a bar with a duck under his arm. Bartender says to the duck, "What? All right, we need a little help here." Oops. All right. Okay, they can hear me. I can't hear them. We have our technical officer.
These are charged, right?
Yes, we tested it.
Connected?
Yeah, that should be. Let me see.
Okay. Okay, so something just clicked in. Judy?
Yeah, can you hear me?
No, still no.
No, now you're good.
No?
Okay, let's try it again. Judy?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
No, I still can't
Can't
hear.
hear.
This
Oh,
is
man.
ridiculous, guys. How is this happening?
Why don't we get off and come back on?
Should we try?
Yeah.
Should we try it without AirPods, maybe?
Yeah, without the
Let's try
AirPods.
without
Pull them out.
AirPods.
Now,
Let's disconnect the AirPods. Let's see what happens.
You want to use this?
Let's try this. Hold on. Guys, this interview is going to really be worth waiting for.
it certainly
This
is.
This is just going to be amazing. We're going to cure world peace. This is going to go so beyond advertising that you're sitting through this now, and it's going to be worth it. I got my
Absolutely.
crack team here on this. Let's try this. Let's try that.
Give it a shot with this.
Hello? Judy?
No.
Yeah,
I don't.
can still hear him.
Judy?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
No, not here. Is there any chance there's something on your end that's not working?
Uh,
Because we tested this before. Yes, we don't hear you
I
now.
know.
Are you sure they didn't put you on mute?
I don't hear
Can
you.
you tell them to check if she might be on mute?
Check. Is
Maybe
Judy
she's
on
on
your
mute.
end? Is there anything?
I don't
Maybe
think
she's on
so. Let me check with this.
Guys, I'm going to sing in a minute.
People.
Don't go anywhere.
What about if we disconnected did you disconnect your pod?
Yeah, no, they're saying it's definitely on your end.
Judy,
Donny.
is
As
there
soon as you
something?
put it in, it disconnected automatically. I think there
It's-
should be something wrong from there, and yeah.
Judy, you're checking your end?
Yeah, no, they say that it's definitely your end.
I can't hear you, so I can't even hear what you're
Yeah.
saying.
What if we logged off and then back onto the
And that's
system?
curious. Hello?
So with
See the
Should I do a
chat?
little ramble maybe?
Look at the chat. Well, I would love to hear more about the duck in the bar,
They're gonna
but
give me a call, okay?
They're gonna give us a call.
Yeah.
Meaning
What?
what?
Oh, Kirsty's
I
gonna
think
give
we
me a
have
call.
to, I think we have to get off and go back on, because the problem is right now is that.
Okay.
You wanna try? We're gonna just go off and come right back on, all right? Just give us like 30 seconds, all right? Oh, here we go.
hi, Donny, can you hear me? Finally.
I don't know whose side screwed up, but we got through it. Thank you,
It
guys.
doesn't matter. I'm so glad to have you here.
It's on mute. It's
Okay,
fine.
good. So,
All right,
Okay.
thank you. All
Thank
right, guys.
you.
Sorry to the audience. We had a technical. I don't know what happened, but we're here. So
That's all right. My favorite comment came through while we were waiting. It said, I came for the music, especially anyway.
There you go. That's from Wes. Okay. All right.
Exactly. So I'll have you talk about the duck in the bar later, but
Okay.
I first wanted to ask you, well, A, you should be interviewing me probably because you've done this
Okay.
so much more and so better, but we're talking to you today because of your new podcast. And I
Okay.
wanted to ask you, why podcasting? You're so known for TV and broadcasting cable. What drew you to podcasting?
Because obviously podcasting is the world now. You know, I mean, TV skews older. So I've, obviously all of my work on CNBC and MSNBC and NBC and all the places I've been. But there's a whole new world of podcasting, and you get a very passionate audience, a very targeted audience, and it's exciting. And it's called On Brand with Donny Deutsch. So you should hear the words rate, subscribe, rate, and review. I mean, that's the call to action words. And it's cool. It's a cool premise. The whole premise is, everybody in this audience knows, is that everything is a brand. Every person, every celebrity, every product, every company, every movement, every institution is a brand. If you have a Facebook page, you're a brand. So I go over my 10 brands of the week every week. The brands, as I said, it can be anything that's shaping who we are, where we're going. I do about a 15-minute riff. And then each week I interview an iconic brand in and themselves. My premiere episode was dropped last week with Michael J. Fox. The second episode this week with Don Lemon, talking about their personal brands. So it's fun, and we're off to a great start, and I'm loving it.
Right. So the next question asks itself, if everyone's a brand, what's the Donny Deutsch brand, and how has that changed over the years?
Wow, that's a great. That's the first question I ask my interviewees, and they all go, "Wow, that's a great question. I should have an answer for it."
You should have anticipated this.
I think my brand is somebody who over the years has been a kind of an honest, raw, irreverent voice about the world of marketing and branding. And I think that, I've been kind of somebody who's been somebody who's been in the business and kind of building brands, but now on the outside of it, kind of analyzing brands. So kind of a brand provocateur, if you will. And I think that my brand value system and kind of the descriptors of my brand has been honest and real, sometimes polarizing. But I'm an ad guy. At my core, though, I'm just an ad guy. And I know one of your questions later is going to be about, we don't have as many personalities in the business anymore. But I always loved being an ad person. And although I've morphed into something different or something in a different world now, in the media world, at my core, I'm an ad guy. I just love advertising.
But has your brand mellowed at all? Because you were very out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting. I look back, and I want to give it the equivalent of Howard Stern. It's not to compare. I mean, he's obviously this iconic guy and whatnot. But if you look at Stern, obviously growing up as a young person, Stern, was very broad and controversial, all the things we know. And now he's just a good in-depth interviewer. And I think what happens with people's personal brands is they evolve as they age. So, somebody who, Donny Deutsch, who was, a young maverick in my mid-30s, I'm going to approach and look at the world. I look back, I read old interviews I do, I cringed, because you're just a different person. And now as somebody in my early 60s who's a father and has seen successes and seen failures and understand, I look, I wouldn't be that guy anymore. And I wouldn't trade anything, because part of what got us on the map was a lot of my kind of controversy, and some of it was very calculated, that, you just would, the whole band in Boston thing. So just getting attention early on when we were so small was a win. But the core essence, though, of my brand was always one about decency. I wouldn't have had the loyalty from the people and the amazing agencies that got built, Deutsch New York and Deutsch LA, and the ethos and the value systems of them. If at my core, it wasn't this kind of controversial, out there maverick figure, but much more of a decent, focused, thoughtful human trying to understand brands and trying to promote them.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, we talked about some of the history. I've been at Ad Age a long time, 30 years. And I looked through some clips for headlines with you, and we had things like, Donny Deutsch starts new job as love guru tonight. Donny Deutsch, it's okay to make a kid cry if it stops people from smoking. And Donny Deutsch rips ad agencies at conference. So the point is, obviously, you're provocateur, and we talked about that. But I've been thinking about it, and I think the closest thing to that today might be Gary Vaynerchuk. Do you see any similarities?
Sure. I love Gary Vee, and Gary Vee is a provocateur. And, I always, I'm obviously my own person. Gary's his own guy. But I think that the similarities are we both were. I was a disruptor before the term even existed. I didn't even know I was disrupting. And Gary is. Gary, I think, also understands he doesn't have to live in one place, that there's the Gary Vee brand, but he can take it out for a ride in a lot of different directions. Doesn't take any prisoners. There's a rawness to him. I was using the F-bombs a lot more before Gary was using them, so I'm not going to let him kind of co-opt that for me. But actually, Gary will be on the podcast in a few weeks. But yeah, I think he's an example of kind of telling it like it is, not afraid to go with new grounds, and also understanding, look, I remember having a liquor client, Tanqueray Gin, and I remember we were doing focus groups for a campaign, and 50% of the people in the consumers just loved it. Oh my God, I would buy this product tomorrow. And 50% said this is repulsive. And, we had a very visionary client who said, if I can get 50% of my audience passionately in love with me, that's a win, as opposed to 100% who, yeah, it's okay, I guess. And, so I think Gary understands that. I always understood that. I always understood maybe in my younger years, the agency or some of the things I said weren't going to be for everyone, but we were going to grow a real compassionate constituency. And I think that's where the similarities are also.
Right. So did you say you were going to have him on?
Yeah, Gary's going to be on in a few weeks. So yeah, I think that would be interesting.
I think that's something I want to watch.
He's done some great stuff. And he, where Gary obviously is another universe where I was, he's just so astute in where the medias are going today in social media and exploring. He's got his new NFT thing now where I'm still trying to figure out what the fucking NFT is, So I'm from that older world of advertising, not as up on the nuances as somebody with Gary Vee. The one thing I wanted to make sure I did today or didn't do, I used to hate when I used to be a younger guy in business, and I'd listen to an interview from somebody from a previous era, if you will. I can't remember that guy now. They're talking, well, the good old days, the creativity today is not like it was in the yesterday. Bullshit. Things keep getting better and better. And I believe that about the advertising. I think the advertising business today is better. I think the people are smarter today. So I'm never going to be that guy talking about the good old days and where has creativity gone and there are no more big ideas. Bullshit, things are getting better.
I don't know, though. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't agree, but the way the agency world is going, we're seeing a lot of mergers of agencies together. We have a VML Y&R, we have a Wunderman Thompson.
Yes.
I mean, things are changing.
Different. I think we're losing the great individual agency brands. You talk about and personalities. We'll talk about that a little bit. Yeah. But I think the ways to be creative today are so much broader. Where when I was in the business and building the business, running the businesses, there was the creative department, and there was account managers and account planners and media and whatnot. And yeah, you could say they could be creative, but now truly is that the creativity is coming from every part of the agency universe. So that's why I think it's a more interesting, fascinating business, that creativity now is not just stuck in the creative department, if you will. And I think but on the flip side, to your point, yeah, it's getting to me, you're putting these things together. I didn't even know that JWT isn't JWT anymore. It's Wonderman JWT. And, agencies, I think sometimes they're afraid to be known as advertising agencies. They've got to be known as something bigger and data, center points and brand ambassadors. I mean, I see, I read an ad age and all the different departments and all the agencies. A lot of it sounds like bullshit to me. It's like, it's still the same business. It's a bunch of smart people in a room trying to figure out how to take a client's business and build it, okay? And obviously the platform's a difference, but there's the brand engagement, steward, ambassador, lover of all things that are intergalactic. And it's just the same bullshit, it really is.
I wanted to ask a question about you. I mean, you've done so much in your career, TV and cable and book writing and and running an ad agency, obviously. And at one point it was speculated you were going to run for mayor. Like, have you done everything that you wanted to do?
Well, first about the mayoral run, I have to tell you, I'm very flattered. So many people over the years have come up to me and said, Donny, you would be a great mayor. You're from Queens. You love this city. You could raise money. You're a centrist. You understand both sides. You understand business. You understand, the person from the street. You love the city. And I just, in this media age today, I wouldn't put my family through it. Everybody says, well, Donald Trump changed everything. You can, be this. And I don't have any horrible skeletons, but just enough stuff over the years where I don't need to. That's why the problem is so many people from the private sector won't go into public office. The scrutiny, the media scrutiny today. And I think Donald Trump is a unicorn. I don't think it exists. So I would have loved to have been mayor. You know what I mean? But I just think the media world is too crazy. And that's why you get, for the most part, just these kind of lifelong politicians who do it. So I decided not to do it. But as far as doing all the things, it's a little bit of, I have one of my books I have a chapter called The Multiple Mountain Theory, that I believe if you're very lucky and you're 1/10 of 1% of the people that get self-actualized and make a lot of money or are very successful in something, there's an irony that comes with their success. There's a pillow that there's no margin of failure anymore. One of the reasons I sold the agency is, yes, it was a wonderful capital event, but I would walk into a 3-hour meeting and knew how it was going to end in 30 seconds. I felt like I had won the game already. It was only degrees of success. Could we go from 1.6 billion to 1.8 billion? Could we open up an office here? But I felt I already kind of had won the game, and I wanted to force myself to create another mountain, where in media and TV, I was a nobody. Could I make something out of it? Could I be successful? And I think that's where, and today even in the podcast, I'm like, where are the numbers? Let me see the numbers. I'm scratching and clawing. Whereas if I was still running Deutsch and now we were 3 times the size or whatnot, I had that pill of success around me. And I like to recreate where I'm still the guy scratching and clawing. So that's why I've always done all these other things. And that's why hopefully it keeps me young and vibrant. Not necessarily age-wise young, but at least in my thinking and my approach to things.
I have some shout outs here. We have David from Philadelphia watching, and Allison from Wisconsin, Natasha from Illinois, Anu from India, and Howard from Michigan. So hi, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I hope I'm not boring everybody too much.
Oh, we also did allude to the fact that, you came from an era where there were big personalities in advertising. And that seems to have disappeared completely. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, do you think?
It's a bad thing because it's a bad thing for the industry. One of the things, and I was kind of one of the very outspoken people of my generation, I was out there, you tend to then bleed into the general media. So I was always, somebody obviously was a spokesperson for Deutsch, our agency, but because I was always showing up on the Today Show or at different places and whatnot and climbed a little out of advertising, it became, I was pushing the industry out. And you don't have those personalities that are in the media. Like if I turn to a lot of people in the culture today and say, give me an ad person out there, you can't do it as much. And I think that's happened for a few reasons. Not that there aren't great talents. The talents are better than ever. It's number one, the holding companies don't want their agencies to be known by personalities because they're harder to control at this point. Like it's one thing if all of a sudden, I'm going to just pick an agency. I have nothing to do with the people or anything. DDB. And if all of a sudden the CEO of DDB is a big personality and it becomes known and it's kind of like part and parcel of who the agency is, well, that person has a lot of control over the holding company. And what happens if they leave? So the holding companies, I'm guessing behind the scenes, and Judy and you and the Ad Age reporters and more than ever, I bet there are not a lot of profiles being done on the individuals running the different operating units because the heads of the holding companies don't want it. They want to just keep it to these generic businesses that they have because they're easier to manage that way. And I think that's one of the reasons. And I also think we have such a fragmented media landscape today, so it's harder for one person, one man and one woman to kind of like break through as a kind of a more of an iconic figure for a generation. So I think for all of the reasons, but you mentioned Gary Vee earlier, and one of the reasons that Gary Vee has popped through is not only because he's provocative and but he's punching into the other media spaces. He just doesn't live, I remember I did a pilot for CNN once, or the talk show with 4 or 5 people, and he's one of the people on it. And he wasn't there as a ad guy, he was there as a cultural guy in a bigger space and whatnot. So I think that's the reason, but mostly, if I'm running a holding company today, and this is not to put, there are very smart people running the holding, it's Philippe and it's Bruce and it's all the smart guys running the holding companies, but I don't want big personalities running my operating unit. It makes it harder for me to run my businesses.
Yeah, it's changed. It's become a lot. I mean, it was always financially driven, but right now I think with public companies, the thing is, a lot of people say independents are more creative than holding companies. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's kind of
I'll tell you why it is true. And this is an axiom. I used to give speeches about this, and the way I used to sell against the holding companies. If you're a holding company, your number one god is your shareholder value and your shareholders. That's it. That's your clients are not your first. Your quarterly numbers, so you can't always make the right business decision. Whereas when you're in an independent company, I can go out and double what I want to spend on a creative director because I know it's going to pay off in the coming years. I'm not reporting quarterly numbers. Where you're reporting quarterly numbers, I can't always do what's right for my client's business. I know it's going to be blasphemous to say, but you're not always you're doing what's right for your shareholders first, because that's the way you keep your job. Yeah. So the reality is, it's not. Now, small independents can't do a lot of things, obviously bigger companies do, but I think a large independent is the sweet spot. Because I think that's where you have the best of both worlds. You have the scale to do things, but at the end of the day, no, I'm not buying any of it. The God that client, and this is not a bad thing, this is the business model, that they start with shareholder value. And the owners of holding company will say, well, I have to get the clients and I get my shareholder value. Yes, but not always on a quarterly basis. And so that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, sure is. Okay, so hang on a second. We're going to talk to you, Donny, shortly about his take on the media landscape, why he sold his agency, and how he seems to have predicted where the agency business was going nearly 2 decades ago. But first, a quick message from our sponsor, Verizon Media.
I'm so excited that you've joined us for what is going to be a very new front. There are going to be 3 chapters for our journey: premium content, performance, and innovation. So let's get to it.
In sports, premium means partnerships. And for live sports and highlights, we have partnerships with all the major North American sports leagues. We've got football. Fans are going to flip over what we got lined up for the upcoming season.
We believe premium is where content and technology come together. Yahoo News is now the second most consumed news property in reach and time spent for Gen Z. Premium means credibility. Yahoo Finance delivers 8 hours of live bell-to-bell coverage each weekday. Connect ID and next-gen audience solutions are just 2 pieces of our powerful omni-channel platform that allow you to find and activate your audience. To enable true omni-channel performance, we embrace emerging formats like connected TV and digital out-of-home. We recently announced a strategic partnership with Vizio to deliver new cross-platform and connected TV advertising solutions.
We are mere moments away from a world where there is no finite end to what's real and what's possible.
We're helping brands show up in new ways with emerging formats, including live stream events, VR, AR pop-up shops, and gamification.
And when you bring it all together, it means our partners, you, are truly connecting with your consumers.
Okay, we're back with Donny Deutsch. Actually, this is a probably good segue after that ad. You're joining us on an interesting day because the upfronts have started and AT&T is selling its media assets to Discovery. AT&T made a lot of promises about automating advertising and making it more addressable when it acquired Time Warner. What does the deal symbolize for those efforts?
I think it speaks for itself. AT&T's business model, they realized that, okay, for them, they didn't necessarily have to have the content. They realized that probably, you take a guy like John Stankey, who's running AT&T, obviously a very, very smart guy. Different skill set than a guy who's running necessarily a media empire, and somebody who comes from the content world and whatnot. And so whatever it is, they made the business decision to get out of it. AT&T certainly knows what they're doing. So they sat down and they looked at the business. And I actually applaud companies that can say, oh, we made a move. No, we tried it for 2 years, not the right thing, instead of doubling and tripling down. Sometimes that takes bravery to recognize, I wasn't made a mistake, but wrong move, and I'm going to correct it. And that's nimbleness. And so a company of that size to be able to do that. And I want to congratulate Dave Zaslav, who is just one of the smartest guys around. And that's a real, if you look what he's done with Discovery and how he scaled that, and obviously buying Scripps and now this merger, and I know Jason Kilo is a really smart guy also. So I think it's a smart move all the way around.
Okay, different change. I also wanted to ask you, I mentioned that A&A speech earlier, right? And it actually, you said you wanted marketers to get tougher on their agencies and take them off a pedestal. And you talked about blasting agency commissions and creative awards and the lack of integrated account teams. But when you look at that 20 years later, it almost seemed like a prediction, because
sorry, guys.
I mean, the compensation model has changed so much. We've all gone to projects. Like,
I didn't mean it to go this off the rails, guys. Okay, because I do think what's happened is what I meant as far as that. I think that the compensation model is a ridiculous model for by the way, it's a ridiculous model on the agency side also, because sometimes a client that spends $1 million, you're doing as much work for a client that's spending $200 million and vice versa. So it wasn't equitable on either side. And the pedestal stuff was, I hated early on when I was young, and I would see it agencies, and agencies would carry themselves like we're smarter than the client. No, you're not. You're not smarter than the client. The client is smarter than you about their business. You bring other skills to the table. They live it every day. And that kind of pomposity that comes, no, you are bringing your expertise to the table, but the clients, it's still their baby, and there's still something about the essence that they understand, that no matter how smart you are, they're breathing it every single day in a way that you're not. So it was that kind of like elitist attitude I didn't like. What's happened, and what I didn't like and I spoke out against, is also the what do you call it when the back end gets into looking at, when all of a sudden you would look at agencies like procurement and go, I found that ridiculous that you'd be punished. I remember we moved down to meatpacking before it was trending. We were literally the first company after like Barcelona.com to go down there. And I went down there because the rents were much cheaper. And then I remember I had to pay procurement company, well, your rent's cheaper, so you're going to pay us less. So wait, I'm supposed to be punished because I'm not the idiot sitting in Midtown anymore paying parking rents? That's supposed to benefit my business. I didn't know, I took the chance there. So that model is stupid. You don't go into bankers and you don't go into lawyers, no other professional service. You go in and go, I want to see your direct salaries. I want to see your rent. I want to see your taxi bills, and I'll pay your fee after that. Goldman Sachs doesn't work that way. Booz Allen doesn't work that way. And so I believe the agencies really they just made a big mistake where letting procurement in and understanding your professional service, it's operated differently. But it's hard to put that genie back in the bottle now. And as far as what's changed is the technology change, where if you're a client, full service, what do I need full service for? There's technology allows two guys in the basement to create my Super Bowl commercial. And instead of paying them $20 million a year retainer, I'll pay these guys $100,000. I think there are benefits for the client, but I think our client has lost something. I do think there's something really special in that full service managed. That doesn't mean there can't be things a la carte, but when a client and agency get together, and I do think that when everything is a la carte, and that when a certain marketer can go out and just have a beauty contest anytime, okay, here's my ad of the month, who's going to create it? I think we lose something. So I think the answer is somewhere in the middle, actually.
Right. I have to ask you, can you stay over a few minutes because we had that technical glitch in the beginning?
I have no friends, so yes, I'm happy.
Okay, good. So I can get to ask you.
It would just be me. It would be me and 3 cats, and so probably better to do this.
Okay, good. My question is, a lot of people think you started Deutsch, but actually you didn't. Your father, David, did.
No way. No.
Can you talk about?
Yeah, my dad, who was my hero and my best friend, I lost him about 8 years ago. He did the hard part. He started something from nothing. He started at age. He had been at McCann at Ogilvy and then just opened up a shop by himself as kind of a freelancer in 1969, and built David Deutsch Associates. It was a boutique and specialized in design and fantastic, super high-end agency. And I went in with him, and with some fantastic people, were able to scale it. But I think he did the harder part, to start something from nothing. is harder than what myself and my partners did. And so I stand on his shoulders every day. I miss him terribly. He was the best guy I ever met in my life.
Is there a story about you and some car parts? Did you mail somebody's?
Yeah, the agency. We had never had a TV account before, and we were trying to get into pitch the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Pontiac Dealers Association. They didn't want to talk to us; it was too small. So some of the guys at the agency came up with the idea. Actually, it was Rocco Campanelli, who was a great art director at the time, of sending car parts to this guy's drive. The consultant in charge of the pitch, a headlight will protect your rear end, a bumper refilled his. It's what I call the stupid agency trick. Sometimes you do something that you send a client something that's so outrageous and shows such creativity that you obligate them to put you in the pitch. I call it stupid agency trick. So that was an early on stupid agency trick.
That's pretty funny. You're talking about how agencies have evolved over the years. If you were building one now, what would you do?
I wouldn't. I'd be too tired. I would do the same thing that it was. You start with the best people. If right now somebody said, "Okay, Donny, you're going to start. You're going to finance an agency. You're going to go out and you're going to start an agency." I would spend the next 3 or 4 months going, "Who are the 5 smartest people out there? Who's the best data guy? Who's the best this guy? The 5 or 6 disciplines I thought were important." I'd find the guys who weren't owners, who were at running big parts at big agencies, and the one thing I could offer them that they can't get there, I said, "I'll make you an owner. You get 2%, you get 5%, you get 10%. Take those 6 or 7 people and go from there. That's it. You best people, you win. In every business, more than anything, the assets go up and down the elevator." So I would understand what I don't know at this point, where I don't understand the business as well. I would spend 6 months. I'd talk and talk and talk, find the 5 smartest people, make them owners, go from there.
Okay. There was this year, I guess it was this year, Deutsch actually split into 2 companies. It split into Deutsch LA and Deutsch New York. That was kind of a big deal in this business.
Okay.
What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting. Look, Deutsch is the brand. I think it was simply the 2 operating companies. I think, to be honest, I think they were doing it so they could pitch conflicting business. But they're 2, it's one ethos. But by the way, here's the dirty little secret with most companies, whether it's Ogilvy or anybody else. Offices are autonomous. Yes, they report numbers in and things like that, but they run differently. They have different management teams. They pitch business differently. So I think this was an instance that both offices realized there were categories they were being locked out of because the company on the other coast had it, but it had nothing to do with it. So why not take it? Why not keep one brand ethos, but have 2 operating companies where basically if New York has a big bank or LA has a big fast food company, why should the other office, when they're operating independently, operate? And I think that's, by the way, that's what you see in big companies. Sometimes conflicts don't exist because, okay, we'll let this office out of, San Francisco handle it, and the office in New York handles it here. So I don't think it was that big of a deal at the end of the day. Yeah. It's still Deutsch. It still comes from the same DNA.
Yeah. What about conflicts? Do you think that they should be eased up somewhat?
Well, they're going to have to be. As you start out with this conversation, if the agencies keep merging, and that's it. So you're seeing it already. You see, everything is all marketing. Is how you present. We've set up this in-house thing and this and that. So it's so obvious. You start putting things together, and then what do the agency holding companies do? Well, no, we're pulling it apart. No, Ford, don't worry. GM is over here in the Victory agency that we set up with it. So it's all the same. You get a little older, and you step back, and you're able to look at things, and the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah. Another huge influence right now in the business is the move to diversity. The fact that agencies are not diverse enough. And, it was funny. You actually, you had D. Rush many, many years ago, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you
we were ahead of the curve there. We started with Russell Simmons, who at the time, this is before his controversies, that we merged with his company, and we built a diverse agency, and we had great success with it. I think after we went public, and we sold to Interpublic, and then we started moving things. We kind of morphed it into we moved it into the general agency. But yeah, understood the need for that, and more than ever, look, it's a great thing that's happening in business, and it's price of entry in any business today. And look, advertising for a creative industry had been very behind the times. I remember when we had that, and looking for diverse talent because it had been so missing from the business that it was not easy to find. It was shame on us, shame on the industry. But the industry is obviously moving in all the right direction. And look, Deutsch was ahead of the curve when it came to women. You know what? I've talked about this in so many speeches, and that give me a woman and a man in the same town. I'll take the woman every time. I think they're superior. And that our agency at the time, our CFO was a woman, our chief creative officer in New York was a woman, our chief strategy officer in New York was a woman, our CEO was a woman after me. So we were run by women long before it was, we got to get things a little more even. Because I was a meritocracy. And the women were always winning. They were always better than the men. That's what happened for the most part, at least in New York.
Well, as a woman, I'm in favor of that.
Me too.
I'm getting the wrap sign. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So I'm afraid we're out of time. But
All
thank you very much, Donny. It was really fun talking to you today.
Judy, always a pleasure. Oh, congratulations on all your great work over the years. Somebody who's lasted 30 years in this business and at that age, it says something about what you're doing.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody, and thank you for tuning in today. See you soon.